Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to Budapest and welcome to the 9th the 9th ISCA Move Congress. I'm Caroline Jessup. I am your moderator for the Congress, and I'd love to welcome to the stage Mons Kirkabu and Gabor Balau to welcome you to the Congress.
Welcome. The last couple of years, the younger generation has asked us, what did we do to the planet? What did we do to the resources on the planet that they, their children and grandchildren should live on? They ask us, why do we give them a planet in worse conditions than the one we got? These are good and relevant questions. And maybe in a few years, the younger generation will ask us why we created environments that promote inactive life. Why did we prioritize schools, learning math, history, language, but we did not learn how to handle our bodies and the benefit of being physically active? Why did we build cities where it's difficult or dangerous to play in the streets and the neighborhoods? I think we are here to avoid these questions to be really relevant. We are here to give all age groups a fair chance to live a physical active life. And we are a lot. We are 470 people from 232 different entities from 62 countries during the next 2 days. And all of us are living the title of the Congress, Change the Game. It's our move. Many have worked hard to realize this, and they will also work hard the coming days to create a framework for inspiration and motivation, all for you. We have 37 speakers from across the world. They're here ready to give you their best. During the following days, there are hundreds of ideas walking around you. There are global experience within a broad spectrum of moving people. They'll be just next to you, so connect and share. This is our valuable currency here in Budapest. I would like to encourage you to join and engage in the plenary sessions, the tracks, to engage with the people, entrepreneurs in the Innovation Alley. You will meet individuals, companies, organizations. You will meet public entities from local, national, and international level, all having solutions. 2 years ago, in the capital of the country, Georgia, the capital, Tbilisi, the 47 member states of the Council of Europe made a declaration of the human right to move. The Council of Europe is based on the Human Rights Declaration, and the ministers of sport adopted a declaration which underlined that access to sport and physical activity is a human right. ISCA was the first NGO to sign this declaration, and many followed. In the ISCA stand, you can see the declaration, and you can sign as individual or as a representative of your organization as one of your statements here as the Move Congress. Let us use the next 2 days to upgrade our knowledge, to stimulate our motivation to change the game and make the world a better place to live actively. Thank you.
Gabor, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear participants and speakers. I hope you were able to recharge your batteries yesterday, because before today's kickoff, I'm sure that you will definitely need your energize, because today we prepared, we have a lot to offer for you. So today's speakers will be followed, let me precise now, the relation between physical activity and health, the connection between grassroots sport and diplomacy, and how movement spaces can and should be formed in urban environment. So I hope you will stay with us after the plenary session, because we have a great opportunities for you, workshops, networking dinner, sightseeing, and some physical activity are on the table to choose from. And let me ask you that to speak to each other, to talk a lot to each other and make friendship, because the same why brought us here. How can we make the world better? We prepared and organized such a nice event for you all. We brought here the world-class speakers, threw up some topics, because we would like to broaden our horizon, step out from our comfort zone. So please take the most out of it, and we can change the game. So I count on your openness. Thank you very much, and have a very good day. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to introduce to you our first keynote speaker, and that's Dr. Fiona Bull from the World Health Organization.
Thank you very much. Well, a very good morning to you all, and I'd like to extend my thanks to the organisers, the hosts, and this invitation to come and join this conference in its 9th year. It's my first ISCA conference, and I'm already enjoying it, from the opening session last night and the engagement which the organisers and the contributors made to set us off on the right note of getting moving. And that, of course, is the centre to this. And I've been invited to talk to you about the new global action plan on physical activity and why sport, physical activity, is important to health. And I'm going to use that introductory title, that introduction, to then go into the details of how we can work together to promote a more active and healthier world. Firstly, let me open and bring greetings from Geneva, the headquarters of WHO, where I work. And we have a nice building on the left, a new boss on the right, a clear mission in the center, and 3 targets. Our targets have been set by Dr. Tedros, the new Director General, who wants to see that we really do deliver on the ambitions of a healthier world. We need to promote health, keep the world safe, which is the protection and emergency work, and serve the vulnerable, which is making sure that everyone has access to the basic healthcare to improve their lives. In the center, you see 3 circles, because he's very outcome focused. 3 billion goal, the triple billions. And in that, we want 1 billion people who are protected from the emergencies and the changes that are happening rapidly in the world. Known and unknown, expected and unexpected, we need to be prepared and respond. To serve the vulnerable, making sure basic healthcare is available to another 1 billion people in this time frame of the next 5 years. But it's the top one where I think we will all connect. And it's my department that sits within this ambition, the Department of Health Promotion, within the prevention of NCDs, and along with many other colleagues, because we have the biggest umbrella, healthier people. 1 billion people who'll be healthier through the work we do. So in this presentation, I'd like to take a 4-part. I'd like to introduce that link between physical activity and health, show you how active we are, look at this new action plan that I've introduced and you've heard about, but then focus on the implementation. I want to, at the very least, 1, inform you. So you know what the World Health Organization is doing, you know how to connect and what is of interest to you. 2, I hope to inspire you. To inspire you that the work you're doing has a role and a place, and hopefully inspire you to inspire others. And 3, I'd like to invite you, because this job is big, and so we're going to need all of us working together to achieve this goal. So let me start with the first area, and I'm going to move ambitiously through quite a lot of slides because I think you know a lot of this. And the documents on the left set the scene. We've known it for years, culminated in leading pivotal documents like the US Surgeon General in 1996, his report summarizing the importance, and continuing with many countries, your countries and elsewhere, confirming, reinforcing that body of scientific knowledge, summarized in the right graph with that pattern that shows us increasing levels of activity and fitness, no matter how measured, no matter how it's measured, the evidence is strong of a dose-response relationship. We reduce ill health, the risk of ill health, by being more active. Well, it's got 3 messages, and I think we're all on that page. There is an amount we want to achieve, and that's shown between the 2 black lines. But there's also a very important message. Anything is better than nothing. And we'll come back to that, because there's a lot of people we need to move from that first part to reaching the recommended. And we know, and no better than you know, more is better. More is better for lots of health outcomes and benefits. We've summarized all that in global guidelines, national guidelines, and countries like Canada, the US have been updating that, and we are updating the global guidelines. But I think everyone here is aware of the messages around cardiovascular health and aerobic activities of 150 minutes of moderate intensity. But we less focus on the importance of the muscular strength training. And it's there. It's been there for many years, and we should be looking at that more closely. And we know for children, evidence shows that a little bit more for all the health benefits and development benefits, 1 hour a day. We've also produced new guidelines for little children. Work initiated in other countries like Canada and Australia have led and supported WHO to develop new guidelines on under 5s. We know it's important from the very little age, and we should encourage parents, caregivers to be aware of this and work to ensure children get that physical activity. Why? Because it counts. It counts because it can improve health, and if we flip that, prevent disease, and WHO often talks about the diseases and the illness and the cost to healthcare, so we go from the negative, but it's all about promoting health, preventing premature, early deaths. And these sorts of numbers come from calculations of how much can be attributed to physical inactivity, over and above smoking, overweight and obesity, alcohol. And if that's how much can be contributed, we can improve then. We must increase physical activity to remove that. But this 3.2 million by one calculation, 5 million by another, they still underestimate it because we haven't included everything. The latest research on brain health and prevention of dementia and calculating the cost to falls and musculoskeletal are not included in those other numbers. More numbers, more research, more quantification is needed, but we know enough. We know enough of the importance about physical activity, and it is important because this slide shows you and reminds you 3/4 of deaths are due to non-communicable disease, chronic disease, heart disease, diabetes, cancers. It can be prevented, and certainly the 15 million that are occurring in people aged between 30 and 70 can be prevented by more physical activity as well as other healthy lifestyles. That's important in the biggest of pictures as we have the Sustainable Development Agenda. And that is certainly at the foremost of our minds of recent weeks and over the past year. Action is needed. We are in a perilous position. But health is central. And WHO is responsible, lead agency, for achieving one of the goals, 3.4, and that is reducing those premature deaths. But we put health in the center of that circle because it's through health you can improve employment and economies. Through health we can achieve many of the other sustainable development goals. And you know, and we heard last night, we'll hear more today, you know that physical activity brings more than just health benefits. You can read this faster than I'll go through. The benefits extend into multiple areas. And I think we need to present, sell, market, communicate these much, much more to your decision makers, to those your stakeholders. Economic benefits. How? More people walking and cycling buy more from local shops more frequently. If you remove the car parks from outside of shops, you can often get more people cycling and using it. Pedestrianise increases local retail. Retail like it. They don't like it at the beginning. They think they need the car spaces. They think their customers are all using the cars and it will be devastating. Actually, proven to be the opposite. Just one example. We'll have more. How active are we? Well, you'll expect WHO to have some data on this. We collect the best available data to try and bring together a summary picture. And that summary picture today is bleak. It's bleak for two reasons. Firstly, 1 in 4 adults do not do enough physical activity. They don't meet that first black line. Remember I mentioned about those people we want to encourage to move? Doing anything is better than nothing. They're the people in this group, 1 in 4 of the adults. But look at the data on the adolescents. 3 out of 4. Something is happening in our societies, the societies we plan, design, and are part of, that children in their teenage years are dropping out of doing physical activity. The second reason, the data are important. We looked at trend. And the most profound thing about this slide is it's flat. Looking across the last 15, 16 years, we see that we haven't made a difference on changing the problem. Physical inactivity levels are static. We also have a gender gap. It is profound. It is not narrowing. Arguably, it's widening. Average 8% difference in countries, up to 20% difference in some countries. Women are less active than men. Women are not getting the activity benefits we've talked about. But what could have been? What could have been if we'd put in together all that evidence I've just introduced, if we'd acted back then, the last 5 years, the last 3 years, we could have been on a different trajectory. We need to set the new trajectory. Quickly, when we look around the world, it differs. It varies in different parts of the world, and we have to recognize and work with the context and cultures and situation. But the problem and worry is where we are today. High-income Western Europe, which includes the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the whole of Europe, is on the left-hand side here. It is on the worst side, the highest levels, closely and next door to Latin America and Caribbean. Where is Hungary? This is the Euro data unpacked. I'm sorry you can't read all the letters, but just look for the blue. The blue country is highlighted for you. There's a problem in Europe. Many countries are over that average, reaching up to 40 to 45%. There's also countries at the top that don't even have any data. Another problem. I put in here for interest to you, other regions are similar. Countries with no data, and I've just highlighted in blue 2 countries where I've just recently visited, the US and Brazil. Challenges all around the world. Challenges because the world's changing rapidly with things like globalization and more use of cars, less walking and cycling, the technology use changing how we work, how we recreate. We're all using phones and screens so much more. So we see in these data the lowest levels of inactivity in the low income, but by the time we get to high income countries, and that trajectory over time, just in the coloured bars, 2001 to 2016, we see the higher increasing levels of inactivity, the problem. Why do I show the data as a problem? Because we have to contextualize it within the other areas, which are also competing for demands, competing for money, competing for attention. Smoking, obesity, abuse of alcohol. But when we promote physical activity, we obviously talk about physical activity and the positives. I think that lays bare the need for a new global action plan. The last strategy was in 2004, so a long time ago. Member states were concerned about those data, concerned about what they can see, and they said, bring the latest science, link with the SDGs, give us a roadmap, and accelerate implementation. We workshopped, consulted, sought advice, tried to understand and hear from many quarters of the world what are the issues, what are the solutions today from science, from practice. Through that consultation, we got the ideas, we got input, and many of you will have consulted, and we thank you still for that invaluable work, because we did it. We created a global action plan, bringing the best knowledge to date. And here it is, the Global Action Plan on Physical Activity, a healthier world, more active people for a healthier world. We took an existing target of 25 for 2025, a 10% improvement, and we stretched to 2030, 15% improvement. There are some guiding principles, and the introduction this morning reminded us. Children have a right to play. This isn't just a nice to do. If you would like to, children have a right. Older people have a right. People living with disabilities have a right. We need to leverage the underpinning conventions that set this as a way we want society to operate. Evidence, of course, equity. But with that equity agenda, we need to do more for the least active. So I will challenge you. It's not about more of what you're doing to more of the same people. We won't change those numbers. It's about more and different to new people, putting more effort, proportional universality, to the older, to the women, to the people living with chronic disease or disabilities, to the disadvantaged communities. So we have to challenge the work we do, and maybe many of you are already doing that. And of course, partnerships. In brief, the Global Action Plan has a framework of 4 policy action areas. Remember, this came from you and many others. We know there is not one solution. And I'd like to take you through these 4 areas fairly rapidly, but remember we've got the 2 days and a panel discussion this morning. So let's have a look at the first area in red, creating active societies by changing the cultural values, very relevant to this organisation. We need to improve knowledge and understanding, those data we know, making sure our politicians, decision makers understand, act. But it's not just them, it's us. If we get in our car for a short trip and park outside a house, our venue or destination, and then expect everyone else to walk and cycle, there's a dissonance there. We have got to address the dissonance in our culture between talking about health and activity and actually making those changes. This is such an old slide. I invite someone to help me to change it. I'm embarrassed to use it every time, but it says the same message. And I always say that was a medical conference on the right. Attendees to a medical conference chose the escalator. I'd love to say they'd all done a 10K run in the morning. I don't think so. But what about on the right? Is it not madness that we keep building more roads and think we'll solve congestion and air pollution? We have got a dissonance in what we invest in, the infrastructure, and our behaviours. 3 of the actions aim at this area. We can do campaigns. Campaigns on health, campaigns on co-benefits, 1 and 2. I give these cycling examples from a recent conference. Not just sport, not just play, not just walking, not just being generally active. Let's get specific. Let's use the best communication strategies and techniques. Engage and enjoy, free events. We're very good at that. Do more. We also need to build capacity, the 4th. We need to give skills, training and support. If you want PE teachers to do better, we have to support them. Road designers and engineers to put in cycleways that work for us, they need the skills and knowledge. It's there in places, but not everywhere. Number 2, that's all about wanting, raising, awareness, knowledge. But we need the places and spaces. And here you see active environments is about the spaces and places. And I know many in this audience work in this area. We also know how to do that. Creating the environments again for walking, for cycling, for play and for sports. Many of these are transport related, but we know that access and appropriate facilities are important. We do know that outside many cities, the reality is more like that. Danger, congestion, car-dominated, polluted. If we keep building cities like that, we will still struggle to change people's behavior. We're quite sensible, women in particular. Women are a barometer. More women cycling, you're getting things right. And women will help children cycle, cycling to school. But we haven't got it right in many, many places. But we know the answers. We can design better. And action 5 is planning and urban design, land allocation, mixed use, all the ingredients being put together in the right way. Action 6 is making sure the infrastructure is there for safe walking and cycling. Guidelines are available. Action 9 is around the parks, making sure they're there, their quality, and their distribution, which is why I've put that little excerpt there, a map of Western Australia, Perth metropolitan area where I lived, where we mapped the gradation of access to green space. No surprises. The rich have more, better quality, more amenity. In the poorer areas, less green space, less amenity. And then we see less physical activity. This is not complicated. It is political. We need to improve designs of schools, healthcare, workplaces, encouraging physical activity, how you get there, when you're there. Now we have the knowledge and culture changing, the places and spaces, we now need to look at what we do in them. They are not enough. They are necessary, but we need this one. We've been doing a lot of this. The programs and opportunities that will invite, engage, skill, and create the enjoyable experiences. Across all the settings, look at this slide and tick off which ones you're working with, either the place or the people. And I reckon we've got this covered. But we need not just in your town and your program, not just here in Hungary and Europe. We need this available to everyone in their communities. But the solutions are known. And firstly, number 11, schools. We do know what to do in schools, and I've simplified it, and WHO will be simplifying it to 5 things. We must do better at PE, active classes, active transport, active playgrounds, and active opportunities after school. By the school, by the community. If you got all 5 of those happening well in schools, primary through, indeed kindergarten through, we would be in a much better place. We've been saying this for years. We've got to look at the barriers and the political reasons, the decision making as to why that's not happening, and many of you in the area, in the room, are in this area. From schools, number 12 goes to healthcare. This is our domain. Health should be contributing, and it contributes through making sure a patient will receive advice when they should. Hypertensive patient, asked if they smoke. Are they asked if they're active enough, doing any activity? Are they supported? Is it assessed and followed up? They are the ingredients. It should happen to the hypertensive patient and any other patient. But where does the patient go? It's not the healthcare's job to run the opportunities and programs. That's in the community. So I invite you again to consider and work on this area with health departments and health sector. 12 and 13 are about more opportunities in parks, playgrounds, in the community for children of all ages, through sport, of course. But sport must offer more opportunities. I remind you of the 81% of adolescents that are leaving sport, or at least not doing the recommendation. Why? They love it at age 10, 7, 8, 9. We know they want different things these days. Perhaps less structure, perhaps less competition. And what about our older population, where they seem to not have enough opportunities that meet their needs in the right location, at the right pace? And look at all of those photos. It's all about doing it together, the joint and the social and the group activities. And I think this room and the conference will be full of very good ideas. My frustration is those ideas are not scaled to have them available in all communities. The last two areas are very important. We are neglecting people living with disabilities. We don't measure, we don't provide enough programs, and culturally our values are that maybe they don't need it, or they can't do it. Wrong, 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 and wrong. This is a major area of focus for WHO, and I hope everyone here. We can work with the levers of cities, and that's why we put a special section on cities, because you've got opportunity and scale to really make a difference and see that difference within years. The fourth and final area is where we must make sure the systems are in place to support that. Governance, those policies, recommendations I mentioned globally, you need them locally at your country level. Data. There's a lovely dialogue going on one of our exchange platforms here for this conference about the value of data, the need for data. What kind of data? Do we have enough data? If we have enough, why it's the problem? Advocacy, partly this conference, many of the things we do. Innovation and research, and of course all of those being used to leverage more investment and prioritization. Much more detail is in the appendix of the full document available at WHO website. But what I want to do now is not just list all 20 of those, but show you this as a system. I've just taken the 20 areas that I've introduced, and I've shown how, color-coded, they link. Because it's not just one or the other of these. You can't just take the red one, mass media campaign. We've actually tried that. You get a little change for 1 or 2 years and then it dissipates. And then we say, oh look, it didn't work. Well, on its own, without the environment, so that they can do safe walking and cycling, it was unfortunately predictable it would have less effect. You can't provide programs if people can't afford them or get to them, other barriers. So when you start to see these as connected solutions, you get a whole of system approach. I like to say it's the lines on this which are more important than the single areas. Implementation is important. We're moving into that phase now that we launched last year. We launched with the Director General, the Prime Minister of Portugal, lots of footballs, and a very big advocacy moment. It wasn't just sport, it was play and walking. We know that we need to get this right for sport, for play, and for active transport. Fix the environments, the policies, and the programs. We've got a logo, Let's Be Active, everyone, everywhere, every day. We created a video that we might show later if we haven't got time right now. I'm not sure I can override this video at this moment. I can't. Have we got 90 seconds? Well, just watch this.
We live in a world beating with urgency, breathing with difficulty, breaking under necessity. We are a society consumed by technology, compact in proximity, choked by inactivity. We are global, we are responsible, we are trending, we are too inactive. Everyone, everywhere, every day. We have a plan. It's time to activate our governments, to activate our environments, to activate our society, to activate ourselves. It's time to activate movement, to activate improvement, to reverse our direction, to activate new trends. We need to alert you. We need to activate. Everyone, everywhere, every day.
Available for you to use and downloadable from the website and YouTube. I'm being given a time check here, so I'm going to finish by giving you a whistle-stop tour of how we are choosing to promote and engage at the highest levels and down to the community level, and what we plan to do next. It's rapid, but we have the panel discussion to challenge both myself and, of course, the panelists of how can we do this together. We went round the world at key WHO meetings, high level, making sure the decision makers had a football, had it in their hand, putting it right underneath their noses to pay attention. In Africa, in the Middle East, and at the World Health Assembly last year. Noting the skipping enjoyment last night, we brought skipping to the World Health Organization. Ministers of Health skipping. Hadn't done it for 35, 40 years. Great fun. It's memorable. We know that's all important, advocacy and dissemination. Critical while it's new, critical for the continuing next 18 months. WHO has a big job, a job it can't do on its own. I won't go through all of these because I've got brochures that you can pick up to go through to read about these. However, dissemination in multiple languages, toolkits that people can use, summarizing those key areas I mentioned, 5 things in schools, 5 things in workplaces, 5 things in cities. Guidelines, I mentioned they're being updated, due autumn 2020. Many thanks to those contributing to this. Partnerships at the highest level with the UN, particularly UNESCO, working on that PE and sport agenda. Sports, IOC, up to the IOC events like Paris, like Tokyo, what can we use, do, work together to mobilize people around these wonderful events, but also after them. Working with the sports federations, working with private sector. And that's a new area you may wish to ask me about. Working with digital technologies, developing our own and working with partners. And monitoring. We need to show impact. 3 billion target, 1 billion healthier, 15% improvement by 2030. We are unpicking how we will see our progress to see that change going forward. We'll have an opportunity for a global status report next year in 2020, a report that will share with the world progress, challenge and inspire. Can we do this? This systems approach? Yes, we can. There are countries now launching their national action plans with much of the right ingredients. Policies are necessary but insufficient. We do need to have the translation, and that's why this conference is on a spot-on theme. How do we now take the mandate, because you need the mandate, of these policies into those actions at the ground level? And there are many examples I could talk about. I think I'm short of time because I wanted to see how in this group, how many of you are involved. And if I was indulged, we'd actually get people moving in very quick order, because if you think you work in any one of these areas, get ready to stand up. Do you work in any of these areas? Oh dear. Very uninspiring standing up. Sit down. Thank you. If you work in the red area, stand up. Culture change, education, knowledge, training. Any of you working in that area? If you work in the yellow area, stand up. Sit down, the red people, stand up, the yellow people. Oh, some in this area, creating the programs and solutions. Sit down. If you work in the blue area, research, data, innovations. Quarter of the room, sit down. Green area, environment, cycling, walking, parks, play. Again, if you work in any area, stand up. Thank you very much. Apologies for going over.
Fiona, thank you ever so much. That was so informative. And just the scale of it was phenomenal. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
We are going to have an opportunity for a Q&A in this morning's track that's taking place in here. So what we will do is to thank Fiona very much. Fiona, I have a small something for you.
To hang around for something. And these materials are available. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And now, just to follow up from what Fiona has begun, we're going to have a small movement break led by one of our ISCA volunteers. Aha, they appear from backstage.
Hello, everybody. Well, first of all, I need you to stand up a little bit. Yes, yes, and stretch. Please. Oh, you want it? No, I can do it. Well, go back, go down. Eso. Very good. And now, sit again, please. Well. Sit. What are we going to do on the stage? You have to do it there. And copy what are we doing, okay? Really good. You have to wait for me. Don't hurry. Nice. Very good. Let me think. For the next one. Well, now you have to be next to someone, okay? Or three together. Very good. Are you ready? Wait. No. Go down. Really good.
Thank you very much. I think an extra round of applause for our volunteers. That was fun. Okay, so now we're going to move on to something completely different. It's Mr. Fun with Balls, as it says on my program. So I'd like you to welcome to the stage Markos Kern, who is going to show us Fun with Balls.
So, hello everybody. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's really, really a big pleasure. I mean, just after Fiona's talk, this was immensely interesting. It's super, super right, because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pushing you a little bit more to that direction. I might offend one or two of you, but I do it in a nice way. So normally I give this presentation at other kinds of events. I'm from the startup scene. We do this in all sorts of pitch battles. We do this for innovation. We do this in front of telecommunication companies and all sorts of other companies to show what we've been done actually can be done by a lot of other people. We also do it in front of federations. That's a completely different ballpark. So you're going to find out why. So I'm going to give you a little overview first, where I come from, then about what we did, and then how you can apply this in your daily routine. My background is in advertising and events. I come from big stage design, festivals, crazy tours, private jets with airplanes to the biggest festivals, and all the fanciness of attracting people to one big show with a big idea, normally with a product behind it or anything, a fashion show, a car reveal, or whatever you think of it, but with the essence of wowing people. So we always worked with something that we we always said it's impossible in the beginning. Like we tried to come up with something completely new that people haven't seen to get their attention and then get them hooked to a certain topic. That led me to Antarctica, so I did like art installations there with National Geographic. We did nice projects in the Sahara Desert, like that was the artsy top of the iceberg. But I also opened up the first surf school in North Korea. Out of the same reason. You want to attract people, there's a certain topic, we look at this country in a certain way, why not switch it up and have a surf school there? Have people surf with the locals and you get a completely different picture and people start thinking about it and you have their attention. So, at some point, we basically condensed that down to people just love outstanding things. And this gets harder and harder every day. All of you know attention span nowadays is decreasing. Everything we do, you have our attention for 10 seconds. If you don't really wow us in that 10 seconds, I'm off to something else. So I looked at one problem and said, okay, why is it that people are not active enough and how can we actually change that? So having done all these big fashion shows and everything, I was like, maybe it's time to put my creativity to work with something that's a little bit more meaningful than the next season is orange or the new Mini has more round headlights, you should buy it and get rid of the old one. So we looked at this problem. We thought, okay, what can we actually do to get all these people that are just simply too lazy, to get them to move and make them like fully immersed in this activity. So, sports tech sounds like the great solution. Everything that we do nowadays is tech-driven. We said, okay, why don't we like go into it? So we looked at all the sports tech that's out there, and we were like, okay, cool. So there's a massive problem. We know it's wrong. We know that it's absolutely obvious, and Fiona pointed it out so perfectly well. But we're trying to solve it with a lot of fun gimmicks. We're saying like, hey, get a Fitbit. You're gonna love running. No, people don't. They love the Fitbit, it's fun, they probably use it, and it's like, hey, look, I did this many steps today. But they're not going to become an avid runner. They're not going to go play tennis three times a week because they now have a smart tennis racket. And when they go back home, they can go into the browser, log in their profile, and see, look, I did 1,200 swings, and 200 of those were good. It's not doing the trick. So we said, okay, we need to do something to get these people. Maybe do a little bit more of that, but in a smart way. So what we created is a fully joined interaction between real sports and gamification. So you'll see it here. What we do is we create hardware to upgrade existing sport courts, because we're a big, big fan of the sports facility per se, where people come together, where people actually engage with each other, they learn, and so on. But at the same time, we need to make it modern. So this is what we've created. So what you see here is a little variety of some of the different products we have. I'm not going to go into deep. This is not a sales pitch, but imagine 20 years ago I came to you and say, like, look, you're going to be carrying around a little box and it's going to do all your computing. You're going to have all the maps you're ever going to need. It's a typewriter. It's a camera. It's everything that you would ever imagine. You can get in touch with anybody in the world. People would have looked at you and say, like, whatever, like, yeah, do that. Now I give you an iPhone, you understand it. It's a little bit like that. So once you play over there, this is one of our products, you probably understand what this interaction means. So far we've had great success with a lot of companies. I am a strong believer, and this is because I've started my first company at the age of 20, if you want to change something, you need to make it a sustainable business model. Because a lot of the things that a lot of federations are trying to do right now is, like you perfectly highlighted, is let's rub a little money on it and hope it gets better. And then if we stop rubbing money on it, it just stops, and it's not helping. So what we try to create, ecosystems of people that earn money with this, where trainers can get more money, where people love to spend money, where people can say, let's build a new facility, let's upgrade the old facility instead of closing it down. So it's done a lot of good. We brought some squash courts from less than 2 hours bookings per day to up to 11 hours of bookings. Why? Because we're not attracting the squash player. We're attracting anybody that wants to have some cool fun nowadays. And they're used to these things. We've learned a lot of things from gaming, from social media platforms, and so on. So what we've learned is a very, very, very simple rule. And all the different products that we launch in the different sports follow a very, very rough baseline. It's a real fun activity. And with real fun, I mean, it needs to be fun that people wake up in the morning and say, man, I really want to do this. Kids need to annoy the shit out of their parents to say, like, can we go back? And not like, oh, okay, there's a 60-year-old tennis trainer and he's going to show me how to use a racket. That doesn't compete with the stuff that we're inventing nowadays. The second thing is you need a good image. You need to make it sexy. And you need a good social framework. People buy into stories. They don't buy into, I'm hitting a ball with a tennis and, oh, I've seen somewhere a famous tennis guy. No, you need to have the full thing and you need to be aware how other things market themselves. And we're going to get to that. Entry barriers. If you tell a kid like, hey, why don't you, instead of playing Fortnite, who knows Fortnite? That's pretty good. Very well done. Why don't you start tennis? Fortnite, I download it, I start it, after 20 seconds, I get a hack of it, and you're in. It's just going to give you pleasure points one after the other. Playing tennis, until you have that first moment where you say, wow, this is really amazing, it takes 15, 20, maybe 30 hours if you're not talented. You have to make it very easy. You have to start it, and it's fun, and there you go. And the most thing is, create really memorable experiences. Create something where people go home and tell their colleagues the next day, you know what I did yesterday? It's like, well, I went for a run. It's probably not going to compete with, hey, I went skydiving or whatever, but you need to have that trigger point. Good. Everything that basically attracts us to any activity happens in our limbic system. And that's very simple. If you go back, you have to think where this comes from. This comes from hunting. This comes from finding a tree of fruit. That aha moment, that big bang, that basically tells our head, like, okay, open that little box where the endorphins come out. Okay, good, you have enough, thank you. You need to be able to trigger that. That's a tough job. I'm going to show you a couple of tricks how to do it and what to avoid soon. Good. We all know that sports comes from war. That's the reason why it works so well with our brain, because luckily enough, we don't go to war anymore. So in the old Greece, they used to have a war every once in a while. So what did all the famous soldiers do? They were training in the meantime. They were trying to chop somebody's head off. And then it was like, hey, this is actually kind of fun. Let's do that together. And they made a sport out of it. Nowadays, you have to think of it in a little bit of the same way. It has to have a certain challenge. It has to have a certain danger. It has to have a certain social element. Why do we love the most famous tennis players in the world? Because we don't have most famous warriors or soldiers anymore, which is good. Good. So when we moved over to the sport, we've obviously created a lot of things, and some things work really well, and some things obviously grown into gigantic big elements. What we do in general when we go away from the products, we try to create meaningful things. So you need to build something that is not just a fun activity for now, that goes really, really long. We're a big fan of fun. That's why we called our name Fun with Balls, because every time we say it, everybody giggles, and we love that. Obviously, we want to push an active lifestyle and save sports per se, because it might not be too obvious, but some sports are literally trying to disappear. They're going down, they're way too old, they're not attractive. We chose squash as our first sport exactly out of that reason. The average player is 40 in Germany. The average center is not a place where you really want to be. Like, it hasn't been renovated, it's a little bit stuffy, there's so many elements to it where you would say like, you don't get the 13-year-old going there, it's like, Mom, this is really great, can I go back next day? He's probably going to walk in and somebody's probably going to yell at him, like, why are you using a court like you're not a squash player, get out of here. So that's something that you need to change. So with all these learnings, and I'm not a negative person, but it's super important that you are very, very self-reflective and aware of how you do this. Because there's a lot of pitfalls, a lot. And humans generally tend to have like this notion that, okay, I know what I'm doing, I'm right. Like, I have the exact knowledge of how we do this. Give me the steering wheel, I'm going to take care of it. Well, most of the times it's not the case. So we've highlighted a couple of different points here that help everybody to just do a little bit of a reality check. Every once in a while, just go back and say like, okay, this is what we're doing, so let me look from here. That's actually shit. So first, number one, really, really, really understand the youth. We've never lived in a time where things are changing that rapidly. You might know like, oh yes, but I'm using Facebook and this and that. Hey, that stuff's old again. Like, if you look at the young generation, the people who are supposed to forward our society, our sports, who are going to buy your cars in a couple of years and so on, these people have it's like half a year, bam, bam, bam. You're still playing that? That's old. Like, oh yeah, you're still using that lingo? That's old. Like, who knows what Weebish is? Who knows what happens if I call somebody a default? No? Default is actually because there's a couple of million people playing Fortnite today. Default is if you choose a player and you don't customize it, like you don't give him other shirts, you can also buy shirts and whatever, that's the default. So if you see somebody on the street and he has really, really boring clothes, you can say, look at that default. People don't know that. But I'm not saying that you should start playing computer games, but be aware of that. Like, you need to speak their language, you need to understand their world. Who knows what this is?
What's the problem, dog? What's the...
All right. Who knows this platform? Probably 10. Who uses it? There you go. Perfect. Please, I want to have you ask a question later. That's really nice. So this is TikTok. The first time you're going to go onto it, you're going to go like, what did you think the first time that you went on it? You were like, oh my God, what's that, right? It was like mind-blowing in a weird sense, not in a good sense. It's where everybody goes to. This thing now has 500 million viewers. It has more time spent on in a certain age group than Facebook. This thing, nobody knew of it a year or 2 years ago. Nobody cared. It's where you do a little bit of lip sync. It's crazy, but it sort of is also very positive because it's very untypical to normal social media. So it's called TikTok. You should download it and take some time to look at it. It's going to brighten your day and it's going to make you very, very afraid of the future. And the most important part, and this is why I have it a second time here, now that you've looked at the youth and you've like trying to somehow understand what drives them, include them. Because it's nothing worse than knowing like, hey, we're selling our car to like stay-at-home housewives, and yeah, we think they like to cook and they go shopping, so we're going to build their car that way. It's not that way. You need to include them. You need to really take a 15-year-old in, and even if it's just 1 day a week or 1 day a month, and go like, hey, so we're a federation. We're like trying to do this sport. What would you change if you could? Like, how would you market it? What would you like to see? And I'm not saying that you should give up your job and say like the young people run the world, but you need to somehow open the door to really have a conversation with these target groups. Because if you're talking about having a program in schools to attract young kids to do more sports, you should ask the young kids first what it takes to make them do more sports. And not say like, hey, when I grew up like 40 years ago, in school, I really liked the little thing where we run around the little whatever. They're probably gonna like it. It's not the case. We're like on a different planet right now. We're already like 500 years into the future. Like people are flying around with taxis and you're like, oh, this is a really good shovel. It's not happening. Good. Third thing, just a little side note, you don't know better. And I'm really, really sorry. I'm not saying I know better either, but you don't. Inform yourself and always put it into perspective that no, it's not like, because we've seen this a million times. We create super new modern forms of sport. And in the beginning we thought, oh cool, that's interesting. We've heard the Tennis Federation is struggling with participation. We have our place full like 10 hours a day with like 200 kids and they're basically waiting in line to play. Why, that's the perfect match. We realized, no, they don't want. They know better. There's like, no, they play enough already, blah, blah, blah. What we should really do is get a volunteer on the court on Saturday and give free lessons. It's going to be nice for the 2 kids, which probably the parents took along to the tennis center already, but it's not going to be nice to the school, and the next week, kids are going to be on the school, you know what, like, you really need to go to that place. It was so cool, like, I was there all Saturday. It's not happening. Good. Embrace change. Who knows what picture that is? Wow, I'm very impressed of you. We need to talk later. So this is the Drone Racing League. The Drone Racing League is a new sport. It's obviously flying a drone. Sounds very simple, but it's super crazy sport. It's on a high cognitive level. They go with breakneck speed through little like obstacle courses. And you have to understand how these things evolve, because what they're doing is they're taking away people from you and attention. This Drone Racing League was started like 4 or 5 years ago. By now, like big companies like DHL, they invest millions into this thing. They have a global circus, they have superstars. So you need to be aware of how the new format of these things works in order to actually understand, okay, how do they function? Fourth thing, same like the people that you're trying to get into an active lifestyle, don't be lazy yourself. It's gonna be more work. It's gonna require a lot of flexibility. It might challenge your identity, going like, hey, but I've always thought this thing is like that. Now I might have to realize. So do yourself a favor. If you think, or let's say it this way, if you knew the amount of emails dropped and the amount of cool projects not happening where we literally say we're going to be doing it for free, or hey, we're going to do it together, because people are like, oh, it's already 3 o'clock, and if I now start that project, it's probably going to lead to another email from them, and then I have to sit down with them, and then it's actually kind of, can we just use the sponsoring budget and put it to the same soccer club that we always do, so put our little logo here? Well, you can do that, you're just not going to change anything. Fifth part, don't be a fan. This is something that we've learned from our 3 years in the sports world. A lot of people are in the sports world, and I don't want to offend anybody, but they're there from the complete different reasons. You grew up with soccer. It was the most amazing thing forever. Then you started working at the bank. And then you had a chance to become a member in a club, and you worked your way up, and blah, blah, blah. And then you joined the federation, and now you're there. It's the greatest thing that ever happened. Wow. But you're probably the wrong person. You're not needed. You're probably just sitting there. It's great, and you've did your politics, but you're not the person actually doing the job right. So always go back and reflect, do I really like this? Because it is good, because it brings the sport forward, or do I just like this because it's good for me and I feel well? And the worst thing that we've probably seen is sponsoring money. We go to a lot of big companies, that's why we included the brands over there, because we were able to create very, very cool and intense marketing campaigns with meaning, with getting people active, with leading over to clubs, with signing people up for training sessions. And at the same time, you're sitting at these things like, no, we're just going to put our money like where we've always put, because we get the nice lounge up there and we can sit with all the other people, and you know, we can invite the family and we watch all the matches, and hey, our company's doing well. Yes, but is it because you love what you do, or you love being the object of that? Or do you really want to participate in bringing that thing forward and helping others? Sixth part, sorry guys, don't keep calm. Like you said, Fiona, we're so deep in already. Like with climate change, it's so good to see finally people are realizing it. and it's getting a big audience and so on. With that thing, people are not. There's places in the world where nobody does sports. Go to the Midwest in the US, go to Indonesia, to the rural areas. It's not a joke anymore. Like, this thing is harming us, and the longer we wait to actually get people active, the harder it is to get them back out. Because one thing that you have to understand, and I want you to very, very much find the difference between this. So this is one, I think it was the, I don't know, Melbourne finals or something, and pay close attention what happens. Who notices it? Anybody? Excuse my French, it's fucking boring. Like, honestly, I'm supposed to watch that for 3 hours? I'm gonna show you how this looks if you are now in the age of between 8 and 20.
Every Counter-Strike fan starts to gather, whether it's at home on the sofa at the PC or here in the Spodek. We are the generation that has seen esports in its humble beginnings. You are the people who found esports, drove esports, and believed in it.
It's called the biggest esports event on the planet for a reason. Welcome to the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship 2018. Let's get it on!
Nico has been fantastic. Breathing him, looking for the ace. Headshots all over the place as Nico lights them up.
Skadoodle, your turn. And he's already got the first. He goes. Oh, hits Nico in the smoke as well. He doesn't know it, but he goes back down. He's got the flow.
Good. I'm not saying you should love esports now. I'm not saying that shooting games, ego shooters are cool, all that. But what I need you to understand is the mechanics of how these format works and why they're gathering people by the millions every single day. Fortnite, very big thing, went on a, I think it's just a hoax or whatever, went on a black hole. All players all around the world. It's on the news constantly. Never. Like, this happened with... So, what you need to understand is, it is an experience. They do just an amazing, great job of building an audience, making it very emotional, and being right in there. There's a funny story, by the way, when Thomas Bach was meeting, I think, the head of the esports league. And you can say about the shooting games what you want. I don't like the violence, everything, absolutely agree. But it's a funny story where he was like, yeah, we're not gonna let you into the Olympics because we don't think that glorifying death and combat is actually something that we stand for. And the guy, and he was 22, was like, sorry, what was your discipline in the Olympics again? He was like, fencing. Just saying, like, it is a cognitive skills, it's fun. We should embrace it. Don't be against it. You don't have to work with them, but at least find out what are the parts that work for them that you can take for yourself. Seventh and most important part, don't feel alone. There's a lot of people out there. There's people that help you. There's people like us that are just trying to push the boundaries, reach out to other people. This event here is amazing because only from the last couple of sessions I've already noticed that it's a completely different kind of people. We don't have the old functioner federation kind of type here, I feel. It's more like people that really want to do something. So reach out, network, try out things, fail, work with startups, run into the wall, wipe the blood off your face, turn around and go the other direction. Because that's how normal things happen. Just a little quick one. This is what we're working on right now. This is our future view. That's the big shot that we're doing right now, which is a completely new form of sport, bringing both together. So this is the first arena. It's basically soccer in a real-world virtual environment. You don't need to have any trackers. You don't need to have anything else. You're basically playing in real world with your physical skills, with your team, the anticipation, the strategy, everything that goes into sports, but you're not running around on a field of grass from left to right. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, we're going to get to that in a second, because before that, I'm going to ask Fiona to go right over here with Rado. And Radu's going to show you how to use the multi-ball. The multi-ball is a very simple solution. So this is what we basically created for schools, for anything. It's super rigid. You can hit it, you can kick it, you can even like put liquids on it because we've been asked that from schools. And it's a very standalone system to have a sports gamification like on a slow basis for all sorts of sports. You can play soccer, you can play against each other, with each other. It's super engaging. It's a little bit addictive, which we love a lot. And yeah, let's maybe start with a game, maybe like Space Invaders. There you go. So, and while Fiona is playing, everybody can try this out. We're also going to have it open in the breaks. While we're playing that, I'm going to actually answer the questions because I think there will be quite a few, right? So everything is also time-based. You see, when she loses the ball, actually the impact goes down. So you move a lot, and it's very, very active. Good. Any questions? Huh? No, she hasn't tried it before. You got to stay behind the line, though. That's cheating. That also doesn't work if you're trying to reach a certain goal most of the times, by the way. Yeah. Good. You can also try if you play tennis. Go ahead. Like there's a lot of different applications. Am I right that there's no questions whatsoever? Over there.
Sorry, can you go through that?
How much it is? It's very cheap. I understand. Thanks.
One, two. There you go. So we have different ranges. We go from the super pro way. This one is 6,900 euros, all included. You just need a projector. You can set it up yourself. We're trying to bring down the price as much as we can because we launched this 4 months ago. So the first 30 systems are now going out, have been going out already. But I think we can, in the long run, bring it down to 2,000, 3,000 euros. Any other questions? Well, that's a first. Okay, if there's no more questions, oh, over there. Can somebody bring her the mic? Oh, there's somebody coming.
Where in Germany are you guys located?
Where we have courts already, or locations?
Yeah, location.
Yeah, we're right now in Hamburg, Paderborn, Dresden, Munich, one coming up in Berlin. Yeah, I think it's 5 right now.
And the main office?
No, actually, there's a few multi-balls already, but we rarely track where they go.
And the main office, sorry?
The name of the sport?
No, the main office. The central of the office.
Oh, the centers. In Dresden, it's Ballsport Arena, which is right in central. In Paderborn, it's Ahorn Sport Club. In Munich, it's the TSV Freimann and Sportinsel, I think. And in Hamburg, it's... I forgot.
I will try to get in touch later. Thank you.
Please do. Can we have a mic over here?
Test.
Oh, there you go.
Excuse me. I just wanted to know, is this designed just for like schools or clubs? I mean, with these dimensions, I mean, suppose like my children now with the PlayStation always there, but I can't get such a giant screen at home. So is it meant for public schools or public clubs or whatever, or also at homes?
It's a very interesting point. So the size has a real reason why it's exactly that size. So first of all, our sensors are in the frame, so you don't need normally these systems are very hard to maintain, so we try to give it to operators to build their business model on. So it's always, it's very precise, it's very rigid. So the reason why we're not looking at consumers right now is because we strongly believe that going to a location and meeting other people and also scheduling it in your daily routine is a very, very important part. If you condense it smaller down, you basically have a touchpad. You put a big glass on a screen and you can hit it with hard balls, then you would have the same. But what we're trying to do is the size, if I make that half as big, you're not moving as much. So most of the logic, like where the colors appear here, are intended that I know where you're standing, you're throwing the ball over there, I know that you have to take 3 steps to catch it again, or have to run to grab it. So you always need some space. We're trying to stay away from the whole like, oh look, it's a gimmick activation. It's real sports, like people, you will see in a second, sweat from it.
Thank you.
Over there?
Hi, I have a question. If you have specific countries or regions that are more interested in this type of activities?
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. In the beginning we said, okay, we were doing market research and we tried to find out where does it make the most sense to launch, and then we did a very bold move for a startup. We said, we're going to launch everywhere right away. Like, we're going to fly to New Zealand. We have 2 centers in New Zealand, and they were one of the first ones getting it. Just because we know that the lead time and the rate of integration for these things is super long. For a school to get this, they have to apply for the budget and so on. So we said, let's just cater it out to everybody. What we've noticed, the Benelux, especially the Netherlands, are in their rate of innovation is staggering. Like, it's amazing. Like, they were literally like, we need this in our school, send it to us. 4 weeks later they set it up, and 3 months later it's like, look, this is a report. So the Netherlands has been super open, the Nordics in general. We also have a couple of places in Poland which are very open to it. US is now starting big time, and Australia and New Zealand, out of some reason, are also very, very active in that area. That's it? Perfect. Then thank you very much. I invite you all. There's global leaderboards and there's daily leaderboards. So whoever plays, there you go. Right now you're in spot 2. Go compete a little bit and bring out the skills. Thank you, everybody.
Markos, thank you so much. On behalf of ISCA, I'd like to give you a little token of our appreciation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I'm sure we'll all be up to have a play with multi-ball very soon.
I hope so.
Thank you. Okay, so the next thing on our agenda is to move to a coffee break, which is always nice, which gives you the opportunity to play with multi-ball. We will have the speakers from this morning in here, in the networking area, just to your right. So feel free to grab a coffee, come back and to have a chat with those guys. After the break, you will be starting in your tracks. If I can just ask you to hang fire for a second. Your tracks are outlined in the app on your phone, and also they're in the lanyard around your neck as well. So the tracks begin on the hour at 11 o'clock. We then move to lunch, and after lunch at 1:30 there is a session which is the Innovation Alley presentations. And so if you check the app, the details are in there. There are 6 presentations happening across 3 different venues. So please grab a coffee, come back and network, and head to your session shortly after. Thank you.
That cold black cloud is coming.
for the stars. If it feels right, then aim for my heart. If you feel like and take me away, make it okay, I swear I'll behave. And it goes like this. Take me by the tongue and I'll know you. Kiss me till you're drunk and I'll show you all the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I don't need to try to control you. Look into my eyes and I'll own you with the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves. Baby, it's hard when you feel like you're broken and scarred.